Welcome to the Sports Angle, live in Las Vegas, the entertainment capital of the world. I'm your host, Rachiele. Let's get into it. Go to our website, thesportsangle.com. Check out all the content we have on there. We write articles, we upload our videos, and we have all of our audio on there, sportsangle.com. We wrote an article recently about the Vegas Golden Knights. They're going to be taking on the Pittsburgh Penguins in a couple of days. That's going to be a great game, but check out that article on thesportsangle.com. As well, for all our audio listeners on iHeartRadio and Spotify and all platforms we share this show to, hit the follow button, turn on notifications so you don't miss any episode of The Sports Angle. And for all social media platforms, we are on all of them at The Sports Angle, and follow your host on Twitter at Rocco Rachiele. My guest at this time, I had you on a couple of years ago. It's been a while. George Carmona from Sticky Paws Studios. Welcome back. How's it going, my friend?
It's going amazing, Ian. It was a pleasure that you had reached out. No better time in sports to reach out than right before Super Wild Card Weekend. I know you had mentioned the Knights game a little earlier on. But yeah, man, I am more than excited to be on and help share my wealth of knowledge from sports, which is a lot, Ian. I have a lot of sports knowledge.
Well, let's get into the NFL, because like you said, it's Super Wild Card Weekend, and there is no better game to start out with is with the helmet that's right behind you, and that is the Las Vegas Raiders, the hometown team in Las Vegas. And they got a tough matchup. They have a very tough matchup. Cincinnati Bengals, one of the hottest teams heading into the second half of the NFL season. And then before we get into the odds and before we get into all those things that are going on with the Raiders and Bengals game, I just want to get a general concept, like what your general idea is about this game. You think it's going to be a great game? You think it's going to be a doozy? I mean, talk to us. What do you think is going to happen here?
So I actually went to the game where the Raiders and the Bengals played at Allegiant Stadium this year. That was my first ever Raider game that I went to. And I'm going to be honest, Ian, I was so drunk, I could not find my seats for the first quarter and a half. After I found my seats, though, I was in for the Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow extravaganza. They absolutely lit it up, not to mention Joe Mixon just sealing the deal late in the game when they needed to run out the clock. The thing is, playoff football is way different, and I like to ride momentum. And now this is an interesting game in the fact that both teams are riding extreme levels of high momentum. The Raiders coming off of that crazy win on Sunday Night Football, which I was there too. I've had the pleasure of going to two this year. But I think at the end of the day, what you're going to look forward to is being able to see how the defenses slow down the high-packed offenses on both ends.
And when it comes to this Bengals versus Raiders game, and once again, we'll get into the odds later in the segment. But for now, I just want to focus on the quarterback matchup because you really have two interesting quarterbacks here. You have Cincinnati, you have the young gun, the upstart in Joe Burrow, was a number one overall pick a couple of years ago. I mean, he has absolutely been a stud since being in the NFL. Then on the other side, you have a veteran. You have someone who's been here for about 8 years at this point in Derek Carr. And there's been a possibility of him maybe leaving the Raiders or the Raiders exploring a different option to quarterback this offseason. So with that uncertainty and that cloud over his head, I just wonder when it comes to Derek Carr, when it comes to Joe Burrow, are we going to see a great quarterback duel? Are we going to see, a battle of the ages between Burrow and Carr?
I think you had mentioned something that I want to touch on before we talk about what I think of that matchup. And I think you said Derek Carr, the Raiders are going to be exploring their options after this year. Now, I think that Derek Carr and everything he's done this year, not only being the fifth leading passer in the league, right? He has led that team through the most turmoil that any NFL team has ever had to experience. I think his job is solidified. That being said, I think that it will be a shootout. I think you're looking at a 35-30 kind of game. In which you're going to see a lot of points. Hunter Renfrow literally gets free whenever he wants. And it's not just the quarterback, right, that makes the throws, right? You need those people that are creating the space and that give them the opportunities to shine in their roles. So yeah, no, we're in for quite a doozy. It's give you a fun fact. Joe Burrow's actually 6th in the league in passing this year. So they're 5th and 6th.
5th and 6th, that's definitely what you want. And when it comes to the Raiders conversation, we are here talking about it with George Carmona from Sticky Paws Studios. And this is the Sports Angle. I'm your host, Rocco Rachiele. But when it comes to the Bengals, when it comes to the Raiders, the running back position is also going to be very crucial as well. So I'm going to spin this into a different way. If you're doing one of those fantasy pick'ems, if you're doing one of those where you have to pick out a lineup, and it's Joe Mixon, Josh Jacobs, who are you picking, George? I mean, who are you putting on your team for this upcoming weekend?
I love Alabama running backs. I just love Alabama running backs, and I think they get it done when it counts. I think that goes to the championship pedigree that was instilled in them at Alabama, and I mean this truthfully. Like, they produce running backs that are very, very productive in the wintertime. Eddie Lacy for the Packers years ago. You have had King Henry for the past 2 years. And I think we saw it this year with Najee Harris, and you're going to see it with Josh Jacobs. He's going to be the person that I would take in this matchup.
And then continuing the Raiders versus Bengals conversation here on the Sports Angle. Now, look, I like Joe Mixon. I actually think that's who I would pick over Josh Jacobs, because I understand that Joe Mixon is that type of guy. You know, you have to use 4 or 5 bodies just to bring him down. He's a guy that, you know, he'll hit stick. I mean, that's really what he is when it comes to Joe Mixon. I mean, it's hard to bring him down. And when it comes to the quarterback position, I kind of lean more towards, unfortunately, Derek Carr when it comes to that situation, because, you know, I like Joe Burrow. He's young, but I like someone with more experience. So I go with Derek Carr with quarterback, Joe Mixon with running back. Wide receiver, I feel like it's Jamar Chase. Like, let's just be honest with ourselves. Like, I know Hunter Renfrow has had a great season, but Jamar Chase is offensive rookie of the year.
They do 2 different things. Those receivers, you know, like, I mean, on the same team, they would be the perfect match. You know, if they were on the same team, it would remind me a lot of when you had Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs in Minnesota a couple of years ago. But that's not the case here. I think Hunter Renfrow, by far out of everybody, though, is the most under-talked about player on both sides that has the most impact on the end of the game.
Definitely one of the most underappreciated, that's for sure. Mm-hmm. I mean, him, Deontay Johnson out there in Pittsburgh, Keenan Allen with the Chargers. I mean, there's a lot of wide receivers that are very underappreciated, but are good at what they do. Yes. And I know you mentioned earlier in the segment about, you know, the people that are protecting that quarterback. You got to have, you know, the ability to get people open. So let's talk about that meat wall of an offensive line for a second, because you got the Bengals and you got the Raiders. And interesting enough, the Bengals offensive line was criticized and critiqued around the NFL draft time because they didn't get Penny Sewell. They didn't go out and get the guy from Oregon. They went and got Jamar Chase. There were so many people who panned that. But looking back on it, I think Jamar Chase was the right move. And they actually did get an offensive lineman in the 2nd round who has been a great player for them this year. But when you compare the meat wall, when you compare the Bengals and you compare the Raiders side by side, who do you think is going to do better? You know, you think Bengals protecting Burrow or Raiders protecting Carr?
To me, I didn't study enough the offensive line on both these sides. What I go off of when I study offensive lines is I look for how many rushing yards does your team have? Not only if you have a lot of rushing yards in the NFL, that's also tied with the carries that you get. You're up in games and you're pounding it out. Those are the kind of offensive lines that I like the most. The offensive line that I feel would get underappreciated would be that team that would be running the spread late in games, and they don't really have that ability to show in that rushing yards category. I do know one thing, though. After watching that game against the Bengals and Raiders earlier on, the Bengals defensive line, I think it's Geno Atkins, is an absolute problem. He does not get blocked at all, dude. And I mean, you're having to put 2 bodies on that singular guy, and every team's got one of them, but he's one of those Pro Bowler level caliber players. So I think the Bengals are fare a little bit better on the offensive and defensive line.
Well, hey, Geno Atkins is an absolute stud, multi-time Pro Bowler, even an All-Pro selection. But, hey, Max Crosby on that other side.
I think
I mean,
he got
Max
selected.
Crosby.
He got selected for the Pro Bowl this year, right?
Yes, he did. He might even get All-Pro because, there's a first-team All-Pro and a second-team All-Pro.
Yep.
Now, when it comes to Max Crosby, I think that, it's interesting they choose Sealand Farrell with the first round. They get Max Crosby in the third round, and it's pretty much been the opposite in terms of production value. And when it comes to the defense for the Raiders, I just want to talk about this very quickly before we get into the odds itself here on the Sports Angle. That defense, there was a lot of doubt when it came to the Raiders, especially on the defensive side when they lost Damian Arnett, when they had to let him go because stuff he did off the field. There was a lot of injuries that happened to their safeties and secondary earlier in the year, but yet they're in the playoffs. And I think the defense still needs to get some credit for that. I know the offense gets a lot of support in terms of social media, but that defense did a lot to get there.
Yeah. No, I mean, they won a lot of games late. You don't do that unless you have some sort of defensive presence when it counts, 6 minutes to go in the fourth quarter and you need 2 possessions, right? Those are the kind of things that the Raiders were put in situations many, many, many of times this year. And that is, I mean, I know we'll get into it, but I think that is what makes me give them the edge, is when you have a team that's been in multiple overtime games coming down to the last play, that goes to prove that you guys are able to win when it counts. So
now talking about the Raiders versus Bengals AFC wildcard game here on the Sports Angle. I'm your host, Rocco Rachiele. We're here with George Carmona from Sticky Paw Studios. And now let's get into the odds side of it, because I have watched a lot of your content. I've kept up with what you're doing, and I know that that's something you've been focusing on. So when it comes to the Bengals and Raiders game, as what I've seen from the odds makers here in Las Vegas, Cincinnati 5.5-point favorite, and the over and under as of right now is 49. But what I really want to know from you is, is there any parlays? Is there anything in this game that catches your eye? Is there any certain thing that you go, you know what, I'll need to pay attention to that in this game?
Okay. All right. Here's a crazy prop bet that I always put in, and it's without fail. I do it in the playoffs because this is when you see the most of them, and I've won a decent amount of money off of it. First touchdown coming from a fullback. I know that the Raiders fullback Alex Ingold is, well, I know that that's who the Raiders fullback is. I don't know who the Cincinnati Bengals fullback is, but I don't think he's got any touchdowns this year, which goes to show they haven't run a little spider 2 wide banana, a little fullback flat, right? And that bet, I promise, it's one of those weird ones, man, because teams forget about the fullback and then the playoffs come and they open up the bag of tricks. So I would go for a fullback and a first touchdown, or fullback anytime scorer is going to be one of my plays here. You said crazy parlay. Why not? It's over under 49 points. Remember, we said it's going to be a shootout. Why don't you combo the Raiders money line and the over, and you're going to be right around at plus 500 odds. $100 to win 500. Might be worth it.
That definitely would be worth it. And then, before we move on to the next segment, I do have somebody in the chat. Definitely a Bengals fan. Shout out to Blaze here. He's saying, let's go Bengals in the chat. I mean, unfortunately, this show is based in Las Vegas, the entertainment capital of the world, the sports book capital of the world here in Las Vegas. But if it's just straight up, now, this isn't really talking about money line, not over and under, not spread, not any of that. Just straight up this weekend, who do you have win this game? Do you have the Raiders or do you got the Bengals?
I'm going to go Raiders. Last possession, field goal. Daniel Carlson. And you can give your prediction now. I'm going to check the weather for Cincinnati because this could completely affect it. 49 points makes me think it should be clear. But what do you think it's going to be like?
Well, when it comes to this game, and also I will get a shout out to people in the chat, I want everyone's angle to be heard here on the Sports Angle. Blaze says that it's going to be Bengals 27-20, and he definitely will take the under on this game. So that's good for them. And, when it comes to this game, I've been really looking at the matchups. I've really been looking at the offense versus the defense. And even though the Raiders defense has been solid the last 6 or 7 weeks, that Bengals offense, we've seen what they've done the last 4 weeks against defenses that are ranked higher than what the Raiders are currently right now. and they've beaten them up. Bengals, they beat them up. The Steelers, they beat them up. We saw what they did against Kansas City Chiefs. That was just insane what they did 2 or 3 weeks ago. So understanding what they've done to better defenses and understanding the fact that they're playing at home, they're playing in Cincinnati, so there's going to be home field advantage there. I'm going to say that my prediction, I actually got 30-27. I think this will be a shootout. I think the Bengals will win in a field goal because they do have one of the best young kickers in the NFL in Evan McPherson. So I have the Cincinnati Bengals 30-27. However, because it is 5.5, if we were doing the odds, I would have to pick the Raiders plus 5.5. So that's just kind of my little spin on it.
Yeah, whenever it comes to playoff games, especially wild card weekend, man, it's really, really tough to imagine that these games don't come down to 3 points. You know, to beat a team by a touchdown in the playoffs is very, very difficult.
So we've been talking about the NFL playoffs here on the Sports Angle. I'm your host, Rocco Rachiele. We're here with George Carmona from Sticky Paw Studios. And someone said it's going to be under 30 degrees in Cincinnati during around playoff time. So that's good to know. Someone in the chat helping us out there.
On Sunday it's going to snow. I looked it up. I'm glad that, dude, you got a loyal fan base following after you right now. They're checking you out.
Absolutely. Hey, this is what you do when you've been, doing this for the last 9 years, 14 years old. You picked up a microphone for the first time. You're nearly 24 now. So when it comes to the Sports Angle, we're still doing it every single day, Monday to Friday, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. And we're going to move on to the next topic. But before we do, I do want to say we talked about the Bengals and the Raiders, but there are 5 more games that are going to be played as well. So is there any game, just off the top of your head, George, that you are really interested in watching this weekend? One playoff game that you have marked on your calendar, you have to watch this game.
I have to watch. There's 2. Oh, man. I'll tell you okay, it'll be easier to tell you the game that I flat out don't give a shit about, and that's the Eagles-Buccaneers. I think that's going to be a train wreck. I see you clapping me. That one mixed in with the only reason why that Steelers game means anything is Big Ben, but still, that's in the same category. Out of the 3 premier ones, you got to go with the third installment of New England Buffalo, and to see who can finally get over that hump. I think Bill Belichick has laid out such an amazing game plan throughout this entire year that they proved that they could beat him in a snow flurry. So I'm not worried about the whole snow aspect. I think Mac Jones is going to open it up a little bit more, and I think Bill's Mafia is in trouble.
It's going to be definitely an interesting game. And then, like I said before we move on to the next topic, the fan base, because like I said, we are being broadcasted. We have about 28, 29 states that watch the Sports Angle Monday to Friday. And someone did say nice Reds helmet in the chat. So, hey, someone's acknowledging, Cincinnati Reds there.
Hello? It's a bullpen phone. It's my dad's. Thank you. Yeah. You got those Cincinnati fans in the chat right now.
Oh, we got Cincinnati. We got Philadelphia. Someone just got mad saying that was going to be, a game you don't care about. I mean, hey, I got fans all over the world.
Hey, that game, that's the only one that it's going to be over a touchdown. Like, I am very confident in Tom Brady just sealing the fate of Nick Sirianni.
Continuing with the next 2 comments, and then we'll move on to the next topic. Yep. Someone comes in saying the Las Vegas Raiders are going to surprise with a win. Shout out to Vegas Karen. I know you're in the chat right now. Shout out to you. And then someone said, nice studio, George. Hey, June Pierre from Off the Top Sports Radio. I see you in the chat as well. And he's just complimenting studio.
Yeah, man. Yeah, no, we Sticky Paw Studios based out here in Las Vegas, Nevada. We do podcasts, we do commercials, we do movie shoots. Whatever you need done content-wise, you come to Sticky Paw Studios.
Boom. There you go. Nice plug there. Absolutely. I couldn't do it better myself. Now, moving on to the next segment, getting into some college football here on the Sports Angle. Man, Georgia versus Alabama. That was a game that happened very recently. And before we start breaking it down, if I start talking about the different topics in this game, what was your first impression about Georgia beating Alabama in the national championship game?
It's very tough to beat people twice. And it's I lost $100 on that last, Ian, I'm trying to hold back on these dumb bets, right? Like where I'm watching a game and I'm like, let me just live bet Alabama was down in the fourth quarter. I put $100 down to win like 280 or something, right? Something just moronic. And then the very next play, Bryce Young throws a damn interception. So I was like, shit. So that game sat a little sour with me. But I really did enjoy all the videos that came out after of people celebrating in downtown Atlanta. Oh my God, it was rocking out there.
One of the best videos that I saw from the game itself is that everybody's celebrating, confetti's going off, they're giving out the hats, and Georgia star linebacker Nakobe Dean has an Alabama national championship hat, and he's wearing it, he's smiling, and I'm just like, yo, is somebody going to tell him, somebody to pat him on the shoulder and say, bruh, you're wearing the wrong hat?
That is some of the most disrespectful shit I've ever seen in my life. I would want to do that now. Like just because I saw the level of disrespect, I felt disrespected. Can you imagine you're an Alabama player and you're just like, that could have been my hat? And then imagine if you saw everybody else like walking around with it and you're just like, that could have been me.
Well, to be fair, there are going to be certain places that are going to get a supply of national championship.
We are very aware of the Red Cross and what they do for this country. Oh, my God. Yes.
But, before we move on to the Alabama, let's just talk about Georgia for a second, because they got 4 or 5 players going in the first round in the NFL draft. Kirby Smart is still one heck of a coach. They got recruiting, they got scouting. But is it going to be an odds-on favorite for them to win the national championship, or is Alabama in their 450-year dynasty, is that going to still be the odds-on favorite for the national championship next year?
So the odds are always finicky at the very beginning. I'll tell you this from experience, and also having a brother who currently plays college football at San Jose State. College football is as unpredictable as the stock market. All right. 1 minute, this kid's staying here. The next minute he's transferring there. He doesn't like that guy. He's only going to play for this coach. He needs this, this, and that. So you don't know what the picture looks like until the end of fall camp, September 1st. You will know who will be in the top 10 at the end. I can almost say that anybody with a college football sense can predict that just based on recruiting and overall talent level. And it just so happens that Alabama's been in that past, 20 years, 25 years?
Well, it's been 20 years. It feels like 4,000. But when it comes to Alabama, absolutely.
Right. So, no, I guess to better answer your question, you will see somebody be ahead of Alabama, and then September 1st, somehow Alabama will be top of the food chain to win the national title for 2023.
I love the chat here. They got Alabama 2-1, Georgia 2-1, and then Ohio State 6-1. So shout out to there. Utah 66-1. Man, someone always has to mess with me because I'm a University of Utah guy. So 66-1. I mean, okay. Yeah. I mean, hey, they'll win it next year. Sure, why not?
The Utes, you know what? I cannot wait, Ian, and you tell me, how many teams need to be in the college football playoff? Because it's not 4.
No, it doesn't need to be 4. It doesn't need to be 6. It needs to be a solid 8. It needs to be 8 teams in the college football playoff. Let me explain why I don't do 12. I don't do 16. I'm not going to go that far. Because when it comes to 8, I understand the idea and the ideology behind having the Power 5. Whoever wins, they get locked in. I understand that. That's something that's very college football-esque. That's something they would probably do.
Absolutely.
They have all 5 of them lock in and then 3 at-large bids. Now, I'm all for that because, once again, University of Utah, they win the Pac-12. They're immediately into the college football playoff. That's good for me. But also, it's good for the non-Power 5 schools as well.
How many conferences do we have in college football?
In college football, I believe there are 13. There are 13 conferences because you have the 5 that are the Power 5, you have the non-Power 5, and then you have the 2 that are on the lower end. So there's about a dozen there.
Yeah, well, no, I would just say, dude, it's as simple as just letting in all the conference winners. Like, I mean, I think there's something to be said about, right? I loved it when the BCS national title game was between 2 undefeated teams. I didn't care if it was biased. I knew that there was a finality to this, There's a team that went 13-0, and there's a team that went 12-1. And that, with me, was fine. So I find it fucking absurd sometimes, right? If you're a team that slips up and you don't win your conference, hey, that will eliminate the dynasties, right? Because, hey, Alabama dropped one this year, and Alabama was so fucking close dropping another one. Oh my God. Alabama's very lucky they even made it to
especially
the
with
spot.
Auburn. Yeah, the Iron Bowl.
Yes. 4 overtimes. But do you feel me on that? Because I think it eliminates. I don't like at large. Let's eliminate at large.
Here's the problem. Here's the problem, and it's the financial problem.
Yes.
And the problem's going to be is that the Power 5 schools bring in billions of dollars every single year. I mean, the reason why the SEC has been the powerhouse and really has been the Pac-12 of what it was in the late 90s, early 2000s is because you have the most powerful teams in the SEC. There's a reason why you have 2 SEC teams in the Final Four almost every single year over the last 5 years, because they are the it conference. So if you were going to do a college football playoff, you're going to expand to 8, they would want to have those at large. They would want to have those
4.
bids.
Those greedy mofos. You know them, man. They would try to nickel and dime every little bit they can get. And I will say this. I pray to God that the NIL deal gets rid of all these under the table deals that, hey, like, we're not blind, right? Alabama's been giving their kids money for a very long time. And if it's not money, it's benefits somehow.
The worst hidden secret in college football. People getting paid. They got bagmen. I mean, you got all that.
It's absurd, Ian. College football is a bit tainted for me at the moment. I want to see them expand, and then my taste will be, I don't know, reinvigorated.
Well, the one thing that would make it better, and we're talking about college football here on the Sports Angle. I'm your host, Rocker Rachiele. We're here with George Carmona from Sticky Pod Studios. The one thing that would make it better for me is if they let HBCUs compete for a national title. Because right now, they don't let Jackson State. They don't let South Carolina State. They don't let Alcorn State. And seeing what Deion Sanders just did, getting Travis Hunter, getting multiple 4-star recruits to come to Jackson State, I say open the floodgates. In fact, I have a different idea, and I actually think this would be genius. You take the winner of the Division I FCS, and you take the winner of the Division I FBS, and you have them compete in a winner-take-all at the end of the season.
I think it's an amazing idea. I think it is an amazing idea. Now, you run into what you'd brought up was your first issue, was that financial situation. However, the popularity of HBCUs in the last 2 years has grown exponentially, whether it be from the Black Lives Matter movement or whether it be from one of the most prominent NFL players of all time, right? Making that jump and sacrifice. That is such a time commitment that man has made. And I know he's changing the lives of a lot of people that would never have gotten looked at. And now he's putting Jackson State on the map. So good for him.
I mean, it's actually great. I mean, Jackson State used to just be known as the school that Walter Payton used to go to. Now it is known as a college that is really taken seriously. And I hope for sake that more than 2 players from HBCUs get drafted in the draft next year. Because in 2021, that was absolutely ridiculous. That only 2 was taken in the entire draft.
Yeah, I didn't dive too deep in. Like I said, college football for me, I watch the rivalries. I'm like the old school college football head that's gonna not watch college football a year, but then put on Notre Dame versus USC. That's gonna put on Army versus Navy in the snow in MetLife Stadium, right? So I wish I had a more detailed analysis for these HBCU players, but I don't. I know Deion Sanders' kid's pretty good though.
Oh, he is, man. He's definitely going to have a bright future at the next level. So before we move on to the next topic here on the Sports Angle, there is one big trend and one huge topic that came from the national championship game against Georgia versus Alabama that I really want to focus on, and that is the possibility of Nick Saban moving on. The possibility of Nick Saban not retiring this offseason, but retiring next offseason. Once his contract and once everything is up, he essentially is just going to leave on good terms. Now, I understand that there's 2 people that are on the side of this. there is the one side that thinks that Nick Saban's never going to retire. He's going to be 93 years old. He's going to be a robot. He's going to be Terminator. He's pretty much still going to be coaching. There's that side. And then there's the people like me who realize that he is in his 70s. He is someone who has 7 national championships. He really doesn't have much left to prove in terms of his legacy. So when it comes to you, George, I want to ask you, do you think that the topic or the speculation is true that the way that Nick Saban was acting, the way he was being, all positive about his players, praising them, really saying like, hey, we did this, we had a great season. Do you think that it is accurate that this might be the end of Nick Saban in Alabama?
Yes. And I think it's not going to be next year. Well, is he contracted for another year? Is that what you were getting to?
What I do believe is that his contract is over that length of time.
Yeah, I almost feel like he's a guy that doesn't need to go out on top because of the points that you've proven. Like, he is solidified as the greatest college football coach of all time. Whether he wins one, whether he goes 0-16 next season, it doesn't change the fact that he is what he is. I think he is a low-key guy in the sense that he's starting to realize, right? It's coming towards the end. And I think you realize this in a lot of coaches as they progress in age. I always think of Bobby Knight. You remember Bobby Knight?
Oh, yeah, Bobby Knight. Chair throwing Bobby Knight, yeah.
Right. You have a conversation with Bobby Knight in his prime heydays of coaching, and then you have a conversation with him 30 years later, and he stopped coaching by then. He's a different person, and he's more grateful for the talent and the people that it's around him. I think he's soaked it in. I think at that final press conference when he gave Bryce Young and that wide receiver the love that he gave him, I think that's what you see in somebody who is getting ready to make their exodus.
That's a very good take from George Carmona from Sticky Paws Studios, and I'm your host, Rocker Rachiele, here at the Sports Angle. Now, we're going to get into some hockey because Vegas Golden Knights, Las Vegas, entertainment capital of the world, and now, I understand that there are people out there in Canada who are not happy with me because anybody who goes on my Twitter, at Rocco Rachiele, I was live tweeting the Golden Knights Maple Leafs game. And I was pretty much talking trash the entire time. Hey, I'm not going to apologize about it. I'm a hockey fan at first. But when it comes to the Vegas Golden Knights, they have had a little bit of a roadblock of lost 2 in a row. However, they've also had like 9,000 injuries. The majority of their key players are out. And yet they're still second in the Western Conference. So before we get into the main topic with this team, what do you think about the Golden Knights overall as a unit? I mean, this team has had to have setback after setback after setback and still is a division leader in the Pacific. Yeah,
I'll give you my overall consensus on my feeling about the Golden Knights because I've been a little tainted because my fiance, her family they're diehard hockey fans, right? And when the Knights came to Vegas, that was the first time Ian and I ever watched hockey, that I started caring about hockey. And I grew to love the team, and I grew to love Gallant, our coach, Gerard Gallant, right? So I was so tainted when right around, was it last year? When he got fired? Was it last year or the year before?
January of 2020. It's been that long, believe it or not. COVID's made everything feel short, but
like a time machine. Yeah, we're in a time portal, right? He was somebody who I saw was doing what he needed to do as a coach. He did an amazing job, right? We're in first place, and he gets fired. Ian, tell me, in all your years of covering sports, how many times do coaches who are in first place of their division get fired?
In most hockey towns that are not Montreal, Toronto, or Vegas, none. But when you're in Montreal, Vegas, and Toronto, it happens more likely than you think.
I guess so, right? So ever since that moment in time, I was over it. That was my number one point on the Knights. And watching what they've been able to do this year, like you said, battling all the injuries, you want to be able to position yourself in hockey to be playing really, really good towards the end of March, right? So I think now is a crucial time in their season where if they get enough points, they can solidify themselves to kind of rest and get healed up for that playoff push right before, right? But But yeah, what are your takes on the Knights? Have you gone to a Knights game this year?
Unfortunately, I haven't gone to a Golden Knights game this year. I've gone to a lot over the last 4 years. I mean, I'm a huge hockey fan. I mean, football's first, hockey second. But when it comes to the Vegas Golden Knights, I've watched every single game. I try not to miss any single one. And there is 2 takeaways I have from this team. First off, them trading for Jack Eichel was one of the best moves they've ever made. Them getting an elite sniper, one of the top 5 goal scorers in all of hockey, and the fact he's only 24 years old and they're going to have him for the next half decade, it really tells me the Vegas Golden Knights made a smart financial move by trading for him. So
Who was the team that we got him for?
We got him from the Buffalo Sabres.
Right.
Toronto's little brother out there in Buffalo.
And this was recently, yes? This was
done in December. I mean, December, they trade Alex Tuck, they trade Peyton Krebs, they trade a couple first-round picks. And there's so many people here in Vegas that didn't like the move because Alex Tuck was a fan favorite. But I put my hand up going, you've never seen Jack Eichel play. If you've ever seen Jack Eichel, you see his highlights at Boston University. He was drafted 2nd overall for a reason. When Jack Eichel is on the ice, he is an elite, dynamic player. So I love the move. And when he comes in early February, when he's playing alongside Mark Stone, that's going to be one of the best 1-2 punches in hockey.
I'm looking up Jack Eichel right now. He kind of looks like John C. Reilly. John C. Reilly and Carrot Top had a baby.
Hey, you know what? That's not bad.
No, because the Sabres were kicking ass at the beginning of the season. From what I remember, my co-reporter for WSN, she did a little story at the beginning of the year on who she's going to think is going to make the playoffs in hockey. And the Sabres were up there. And I remember her mentioning Jack Eichel. And so he's one of those players that has been probably was he in that Canadian AHL league?
When it comes to Jack Eichel, he actually came from the NCAA. He came from Boston University.
You said that, yep.
And he worked his way up. And I will say this about Buffalo. You know what? Everyone has had expectations about Buffalo breaking their 11-year playoff drought, but they just lost 6 straight, and they're one of the lowest in all of the Eastern Conference. So, unfortunately, as much as I'd love to say that Buffalo is going to make it, they've just lost 6 straight. So,
and they lost the Eichmann. They lost him, and now he's. I have been wanting to. Who's that other super young player? Isn't it? I think his name's Austin.
Oh, Austin Matthews.
Yeah, who does he play for?
He plays for the Toronto Maple Leafs. I mean, everyone in the city of Toronto thinks that they're the only hockey team in Canada, and everyone outside of Toronto hates the Maple Leafs, and Austin Matthews is the poster boy, so they hate him by default.
Right. But those were the 2, right? It was Eichel and Matthews coming up. They were like, if you lock up one of these, it's almost like locking up freaking Shohei.
It's really insane how in a 2-year span, you had a trio of generational talent. You had Austin Matthews, Jack Eichel, and you also had the best hockey player in the world in Connor McDavid as well. Mm-hmm. So you had those trio in a 12-month span enter the NHL. So it really was a great time to be an Oilers fan, a Maple Leafs fan, and a Sabres fan. But unfortunately, Jack Eichel is now a Golden Knight. Austin Matthews is on pace to be one of the best goal scorers in hockey. And Connor McDavid, I think he's going to have 200 points by the end of the year. So
holy shit! Oh my god!
This guy leads the points, and it's not even close. So
let's see here. Jack Eichel, born in Massachusetts, 6'2", 203. See, I always think hockey guys are smaller when I see them on the ice. But they're actually like, they're like, average linebackers.
They're big guys. Yeah, they're big guys.
Ian, have you ever played hockey?
I played roller hockey, but unfortunately I can't do ice hockey. Otherwise I just slip and fall in 5 seconds.
Yeah, same. I marvel at it. Like these guys cut on a dime. Now you said Eichel's a sniper. The hell do you mean by he's a sniper? Give me the definition of what a sniper is.
A sniper is essentially a player who is getting paid to put pucks in the back of the net. He is not someone who's going to do 50, 60 assists. He's not a gritty guy. He's not a fighter. He's not someone that does face-offs. No. A sniper is literally a guy that they pay $9, $10, $11 million a year to score 40, 50, 60 goals a year. That's essentially his entire job.
Okay. All right. Way to clear that up for me. All right. I see, Ian, I'm still learning. 4 years of them being here in Vegas, and my hockey terminology is very poor.
So you know what? That's why someone like me is here.
Yes.
That's why I'm here.
You've cleared it up for me.
Now let's go to the chat real quick because somebody, I don't know if it was me, I don't know if it was you, I don't know who it was, but they are in all caps right now, was a fan of the Golden Knights until they traded Marc-Andre Fleury. And I'm irked when they call them the Misfits when half the team is not here anymore.
Right.
No. You know what? They're still going to call them the Misfits because that's the nickname they were given. I mean, it's kind of similar to, for example, the cardiac kids out there, the Carolina Panthers. Well, they had cardiac arrest when they lost 11 out of 12. So it really doesn't matter what your nickname is. You're going to keep that no matter what. But look, trading Marc-Andre Fleury was a loss for the Vegas Golden Knights, but you got to understand that the Vegas Golden Knights still have the second best record in the Western Conference, and Marc-Andre Fleury is playing for a team that's 14th in the West in the Chicago Blackhawks. So overall, I think the Golden Knights are okay without Marc-Andre
Absolutely.
Fleury. I think they're fine.
We got him at the right time. From what I understand, and I love, like I said, I'm a lover of sports. There are greats, and from what I understood is that Marc-Andre Fleury is up there in like the Mount Rushmore of goalies in hockey at all time.
Absolutely. I mean, he won 3 Stanley Cups. He's won a Vezina, Jennings. I mean, pretty much any goaltender trophy you could think of, he pretty much has it.
Right. And we got him at the right time, and we shipped his ass out. So let's not be sorry about that. All right, move on to the next one.
All right, move on to the next one. And, I know we're here in Las Vegas. We're in the entertainment capital of the world, and there actually is a sport that I know me and you know a lot about, and that is the UFC. I know the UFC is huge here in Las Vegas.
Absolutely.
And I want to ask you real quick, when's the last time you've been to anything UFC related? Like, when's the last time you saw anything?
So the last UFC related event, I went to the final Dana White Contender Series fight. So being able to work here at Sticky Paws Studios, if I wanted to and I had a rock, I can throw it and hit the UFC Apex Center where they do all those pay-per-view fights during COVID and where they hold the Dana White Contender Series. So the last time I went, it was for a Contender Series fight. I got to see 5 amazing fights. These people are fighting for contracts to get into the UFC. So they're not fully vested yet. So the hunger and the drive behind these people fighting for millions of dollars is okay. I don't mean to sound. Never mind. I'm not going to say it. Say it.
Oh, really? I mean, hey, go on. You already built up the punchline.
Well, no, it reminds me of like the olden times, right? Where people would have to fight other people like the Roman gladiators and stuff. Those are the kind of vibes that I get, right? Where it's just so primitive and just manly. I mean, even when the women fight, you're like, damn, that's a manly fight. You know what I mean? That's not a womanly kind of fight. These girls are killing each other. So that was my last. Have you ever been to a UFC event? Or
I've been to a couple, and I'm gonna say this on record. I'm a huge heavyweight guy. You give me a great heavyweight versus heavyweight battle, and I'll be there. However, ironically enough, my favorite fighter of all time, and to me, the greatest UFC fighter of all time, is fighter Anderson Silva. So, he wasn't necessarily a heavyweight, but you know what? When it comes to Silva, to me, he is the greatest UFC fighter of all time. And what about you? I mean, who do you have as the GOAT of MMA?
Well, okay. There's GOATs in different respects. I myself am an overall technical aspect, kick your ass, tough, gritty guy. So my GOAT is Khabib. And for this, not only the fact he's undefeated, but in the manner in which he would beat his opponents. Chase, one of my buddies just walked here. He's an engineer. I'm just going to ask him this question and get his response. Chase, if you were getting choked out, right? If you were getting choked out and the dude who was choking you out said, I deserve the title. You are going to lose. You need to stop fighting. Like, how demoralizing would you feel?
I'd be horrified. That's horrifying.
Yeah. And this dude would do this to just about all his opponents. He said he would beat him up and say, I deserve this, as he's beating him up. So yeah, Khabib, GOAT. But I love Anderson too. You're not wrong in saying that he doesn't serve a purpose. He's more of a striker. Here's the thing that kills Anderson Silva. And I don't know if it kills it in the regards that he's lost a lot, But there's something to be said about like that perfect record from Khabib. But Anderson kept taking fights, and he should have stopped taking fights because he's not.
Yeah, his last 4 or 5 years, he just took any fight that he could. So.
He just kind of took a dive down and it made his career look shittier than what it was, which was an amazing career.
And then continuing the UFC conversation here on the Sports Angle, I'm your host, Rocco Rachiele. We're here with George Carmona from Sticky Paw Studios. And yeah, when it comes to the heavyweights, I mean, I am a huge fan of guys like Derek Lewis, Stipe. You know, when Cormier was fighting, I was a huge fan of him. Cain Velasquez when he was in his prime. Junior Dos Santos when he was in his prime. I mean, there's so many great fighters.
Alistair Overeem. Oh, my God. That is probably the scariest looking individual I've ever seen.
Oh, absolutely, man. I think Ngannou right now, he's going to be putting on one heck of a match in T-Mobile Arena in a couple of weeks.
Who's he fighting?
Gone. I think Cyril. Yeah, that's what he's fighting, Cyril. Yeah.
Yeah, no, Ngannou, he's like 3 fights away, like 3 of those brutal, like, holy shit knockouts away, because he already has them, right? But now doing it as the championship status, you have to try to beat me, take my title. He has a couple of those. I think he solidifies that he will probably be the greatest heavyweight fighter the UFC's had.
Oh, absolutely. I totally agree 100%. And when it comes to UFC, I like what's going on there. The boxing world, I mean, there's a lot of things going on there. I mean, we all heard about the Paul brothers, and we all heard about Dana White. And, you know, this is kind of a segue, but it's also relevant to the topic. Do you think that Dana White and Jake Paul will fight one day? They're just going to have a grudge match, battle it out. Dana White, Jake Paul, you put him in the octagon, put him in the square circle. It doesn't matter where they put it. But one of these days, Dana White is just going to get fed up and just beat the crap out of Jake Paul.
No. Here's the thing, man. And it's crazy because I think there's one of 2 ways you can look at it. Boxing purists, how do you feel about an amateur boxer getting 4 of the biggest pay-per-views of 2020 or of 2021? Like, how do you feel, right? Like a person who has done this their entire life, and you get some fucking YouTuber to come in and have the biggest pay-per-views 4 times in a year. That is it helping the sport, or is it absolutely hurting the sport because now people don't want to see like a legitimate boxing match?
Well, I'm gonna answer this question by asking a question. When they did exhibition fights in the 70s and 80s, did that kill the sport then?
You'd have to give me some examples because I did not even know there was. When
they did exhibition fights, like when they had people who came from the wrestling world, they would do exhibition boxing fights with some of the greatest fighters from the 70s and 80s. I mean, heck, Hulk Hogan has a win-loss record when it comes to boxing. You've had people come over from MMA. They have fought in boxing fights over the last couple of years. Right. Like, when it comes to exhibitions, they did back in the 70s and 80s, there was like boxers would be 50, 60, 70 years old. They would come out of retirement to do exhibition fights that wouldn't count towards their record. So really my question would be, to answer your question, did those exhibition fights in the 70s and 80s, did that hurt boxing? Because I don't really think it did. I don't think when you saw Muhammad Ali do exhibition fights, it really hurt the world sport of boxing.
You know what? Okay. All right. So very fair. Very fair. I did not know any of that. I did not know Hulk Hogan had a little X record bout. But I do, as you were talking about it, it made me think that, yes, it helps the sport. But you know what hurts the sport? And this is just from me not knowing a lot about boxing, but knowing enough in the heavyweight division, right? Anthony Joshua not taking fights underneath other people's terms, wanting to fight in the UK all the goddamn time. And I think it's setting up for either Fury and him in the UK, which will be probably the biggest boxing event in a very long time. But that's the shit, right? Because Jake Paul is just doing it, right? Like, all right, who wants to fight? I'll take you. And now you're looking at the people that do boxing for a living, right? And they're these people that are trying to uphold these amazing records. I think it makes them look even worse when they aren't moving at the speed of an amateur boxer per se.
Well, actually, I was going to say this, is that when it comes to boxing, what's really killing the sport is lack of promotion. I mean, you really don't have the promoters that are spending the money that they did back in the 80s and 90s. You don't really have a Floyd Mayweather. And hey, I never thought I'd ever say this about Money Mayweather, but he is probably the best thing to have ever happened to boxing in the last 20 years because of the promoting, because of how much money he made the people that was on the card with him. It wasn't just him himself.
Yes.
When you were on that card, you got paid very handsomely as well. Floyd Mayweather hasn't fought in nearly 5 years. I mean, that's kind of insane. I mean, I'm here in Las Vegas. I remember the McGregor and Mayweather fight. That was 5 years ago. So when it comes to Floyd Mayweather, him leaving and Manny Pacquiao kind of towards the end of his career, you don't have an established star in boxing that everyone knows. Like, you don't really have somebody in boxing.
You have Canelo, but Canelo has absolutely thrashed that division. And you know who fucking rules all this boxing shit now is all the social media guys. You have Ryan Garcia just showing how many times he can uppercut in 30 seconds. It's impressive, right? He's a handsome guy. But Ian, it's kind of funny you're saying all this. We actually have a boxing show that has been recording out of here called Fight Stars TV. Check them out on YouTube. And you know Paulie Malignaggi or Maggi?
I've heard the name. Yeah,
so he's in studio actually right now, like right outside the door here. And they've been doing like a boxing show, and they bring up this very topic a lot, where it's just like there's a huge difference between Ryan Garcia and you know, somebody who's well established as a boxer. Not saying that Ryan Garcia hasn't proven himself, but he's at that weird point in time where he's extremely famous. He's got like Floyd Mayweather kind of eyeballs, but the money doesn't translate. You know what I mean? Where's this happening? And that is where the sport will be decided.
And to give anybody a point of reference, I have been to the Nevada Boxing Hall of Fame. I've been to, Barry's Boxing Gym. Like, I've gone to the interviews, press conferences, like around here in Las Vegas. I've done those before. And I've even asked boxers, I've even asked promoters that were at the Boxing Hall of Fame. I even interviewed Floyd Mayweather Sr. At the Nevada Boxing Hall of Fame, one of the best moments of my career so far. And I've kind of gotten a consensus is that they really need that promotion. They really need, those eyeballs on the product, because you can have great boxers, but if no one's watching, you're not going to make money.
Right.
I mean, you can have two technical guys who are sound pound for pound, but if they do not know that you're going to be there on Sunday night, no one's going to pay attention.
Right. If they're not doing 100 uppercuts on TikTok, right? Do they even matter? Oh my goodness! But yeah, it's the world we're living in now, Ian. I mean, you're doing it now with the sports angle here on YouTube, and I've appreciated every single moment of this, and hopefully we can do this again in the future, man. Possibly we'll get you some of these boxing guests. Pretty nice, but we'll stay in touch. I know we will.
Absolutely. We will stay in touch. We actually have about 5 minutes left here on the Sports Angle. We do an hour-long show here. And when it comes to the next segment we do on the show, it's actually one of my most popular, one of my most famous segments here on the show, and it is called Flip the Script. And with Flip the Script, I essentially become the guest, and my guest essentially becomes the host of the Sports Angle. So with about 5 minutes left, I essentially am going to be doing Flip the Script here on the Sports Angle. George Carmona, host of the Sports Angle. Rocco Rachiele is the guest here on the show. So George, it's good to be on the show. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, George Carmona here, the Sports Angle. Glad to have Ian Rachiele here as a guest. Ian, I guess I'll just start off here with the first question, something we didn't really touch on, which was the NBA. And I'll just jump straight into my Boston Celtics. We're at even 500, fourth place in the division right now. Ian, have you watched any NBA enough to know how the Boston Celtics are doing this year?
I actually have talked a lot about the NBA in the past, and I definitely keep up to date with the NBA. And when it comes to the Boston Celtics, I'm glad you brought that up, because I have a trade proposal for you. I have a trade idea for the NBA trade deadline.
Let's hear it.
Now, the Boston Celtics, they are not content on just being average. They're a team that's legacy. They're historic. They're iconic. So I have an idea. The Boston Celtics breaking up Jaylen Brown, breaking up Jason Tatum. I feel like it's been a long time coming. They're a great 1-2 punch, but you need somebody else. You really need to bring in someone that can actually help build and help establish Jason Tatum from level A to level B. And if you are the Portland Trailblazers, you are right now not going in the right direction. I mean, you're going backwards. You're backpedaling right now. There's been the problems about CJ McCollum. So if I'm Boston Celtics, I'm the Portland Trailblazers, here's what I'm going to do. If I'm the Boston Celtics, I'm trading Jaylen Brown. I'm trading one of their mid-level contracts, maybe Al Horford, maybe Dennis Schroeder, and you take 2 first-round picks. You trade to the Portland Trailblazers, and you get one of the top 5 point guards in the NBA in Damian Lillard. I think that would be a perfect trade for the Boston Celtics, but I know you're the host of the show. What do you think? You take Jaylen Brown, Al Horford, and 2 first-round picks. You trade to Portland, and you get Damian Lillard.
Yeah, no, the Boston Celtics were waiting for here's one of the things I had to jump to, right? It's crazy that Brad Stevens is still part of the operations. Like, that to me is never really relinquishing power. And this is where, Ian, I think this is where they're going to be stubborn idiots, because I think that Brad Stevens sees the benefit of having Tatum and Brown together. And we have them together, I think, for the next year for sure. Next year, I'm unsure about. I think they want to ride this out for another year. And I know it sounds absurd, but I know the Celtics, and I don't think getting rid of a premier name, right, which those are the 2 premier names, is something that Celtics fans jive with. The last time we did this was when we sent everybody to Brooklyn, right? We sent all the old people to Brooklyn, and then we brought in all the fresh blood. I think that the time to flip everything is next year. I think they're going to write it out this year. They're going to see how the new coach does. I'm not fully bought in on the new coach's system. I think it's very they run a perfect system for what CJ McCollum and Damian Lillard would bring, right? Which is more of a 5-out. They let the players get the space that they need. They let Jason Tatum have the ball for 12 seconds possession. They let Jaylen Brown have the ball for 12 seconds possession. You add in another asset like that that's actually able to score like that. We don't have anybody else other than those 2 that can put up those kind of numbers. Like we had Kemba, and then we had Kyrie before that can kind of fill those gaps. I think the Celtics are going to be a stubborn team this year, and they're not going to do it. I think the Celtics are eyeing more so Ben Simmons.
Here's the problem with Ben Simmons. And with me being a guest on Flip the Script, I'm just going to do this very quickly because we have about 2 minutes left. Now, when it comes to a Ben Simmons trade, the reason why I disagree is because I think there's a different team that would be a better target for Ben Simmons, and that's the Dallas Mavericks. I think if you took Luka Doncic and Ben Simmons, put them on the same team, you take Kristaps Porzingis and Joel Embiid and put them on the same team, you're talking about 2 of the best players on the front court, and you have 2 of the best players out there on the back court, and you have another score for Luka Doncic because he desperately needs another scorer out there in Dallas. It's not just Tim Hardaway Jr. It just can't be him and Jalen Brunson.
Hey, give me picks over Kristaps Porzingis any other day. Somebody's getting screwed in this trade, right? And getting Kristaps would be getting screwed. So I'd rather have picks than Kristaps.
Contract-wise, that's the only reason why you would even put Kristaps Porzingis in any trade.
Right.
So this was the segment called Flip the Script, where I let my guest be the host and I be the guest. We always do this, for the best guests I bring on the show. And with us having about 90 seconds left here on the clock, George Carmona, thank you for being on the show. I know you have a lot of projects and a lot of things you're working on. So tell the people around the world where they can find you.
So yeah, you guys can find me at Mr. George Carmona on Instagram. From there, you guys can follow my link tree. I have links to just about every other thing I do. I'm a content creator here at Sticky Paws Studios here in Las Vegas, Nevada. But aside from being just a content creator and marketer, I also do sports reporting for WSN. You could follow them at WSN World Sports Network. That's where all my Instagram clips go up. We do about 3 clips a week from me, 3 clips a week from Katie Chung Hua, ex-professional hockey player. You definitely want to go give those a follow. Ian, those are all my projects. Thank you.
Absolutely. And hey, you know what? It's good catching up. It's been a while, but you know what? It was a great episode. And this is the Sports Angle. I'm your host, Rocco Rachiele. We are live weekdays, Monday to Friday at 6 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Mountain, 8 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Eastern. Follow us on all social medias at the Sports Angle and go to our website, thesportsangle.com. Check out all the content we have on there. And until next time, I'm your host, Rocco Rachiele. Rock on, and we will see you later.